Hello and welcome to Policy Watch, your packed snapshot of the week's biggest business developments, their context, their relevance and policy impact. I'm GOVINDRAJ, ETHIRAJ. Now, the big news this week is the surprise sacking of Tata Sons chairman Cyrus Mistry by its board. Now, Tata Sons is the company that owns controlling stakes in all the major Tata companies, including Tata Motors, Tata Steel, Tata Tea and the Taj Group of hotels. Now, while this should seem an internal matter for a company or group, questions are being asked about the manner in which the sacking was done and whether shareholder interests of the companies owned by Tata Sons were compromised. Equally, if a series of charges Mr. Mistry subsequently levelled against the Tatas are legitimate, the larger question is of corporate governance. Are companies within their right to appoint and let go of individuals of their choice? If so, what is the right level of transparency for other stakeholders, including shareholders, which include several government-owned institutions like the Life Insurance Corporation of India? And finally, what is the resolution for such a situation, if any? And to discuss this, I'm joined by Ajay Gupta, founder and managing director of the Stakeholder Empowerment Services and also former executive director of the Securities and Exchange Board of India, and Ajay Bagga, chairman of OPC Asset Solutions. So, Mr. Gupta, let me understand first. I'm looking at both the volumes, it's actually not volumes, but the letters that have been exchanged between Tata Sons on one hand and Cyrus Mistry on the other hand. Tata Sons letter came subsequently. Why is it a matter that needs to be out in the open?
See, first of all, you would understand that Tatas are one of the biggest business house of the country, and anything that happens which is put into the question would certainly generate a lot of interest. Interest not only in nation but outside India also, because Tata is a global business house having operations in many countries. That is one. The second is this, that if you look at the thing, you have already raised that the decision and the process. So while the decision to remove could have been perfectly legal, but the process followed may not be the right process, looking into the ethical standards of Tata.
Right. So who is to decide that?
See, decision making I cannot do, you cannot do. It has to be decided by the board. But if you look at this, when they say that it was because of the performance he was sacked, but performance cannot be overnight, that till yesterday he was very efficient and today morning he has become inefficient. He has not pressed any nuclear bomb button, so that has happened.
No, so my question is why, whether he performed or not performed, whether it was efficient or not efficient, why is it the concern of someone sitting outside when a board and a fully empowered board has taken a decision?
That's what I'm saying. The decision making, see, when you say the Caesar 5 has to be above board, that is the reason. Here, when you are a company which is investor in a many listed company, and Mr. Mistry was not only chairman of Tata Sons but was a part of the board of many companies. He is still part of the board of many companies, even Tata Sons is part of. But when you take a decision which is impacting, it may not directly impact me, it gives a perception of impact, you have to be a bit more transparent and straightforward. Here I say the decision is disproportionate to the cause that you have done, and the cause was not sudden. You could have done it in a different process. You could have appointed a committee to look for successor and made a statement that we are looking for a successor for Mr. Mistry. Until such time successor is found, Mr. Mistry will continue. So that would have been the better method, and it would not have given any cause of complaint to Mr. Mistry as well.
Right. Okay. I'm going to come back to that point in a moment. Ajay, so markets seem to have reacted quite negatively. 26,000 crore market capitalization lost. Is that because of what happened? Is it because the revelations that came forth? What's the real reason?
Yeah, on Monday, in fact, we thought not much impact will come. The ADRs were not moving, the SGX Nifty was not moving. We were surprised by, and then it has deteriorated. So Monday itself, we thought the damage will be controlled. Look at it, Govind. Look at it, Govind, in this way, that Birla is owned by Pilani Investments, for example. Do you even know who's the chairman or the board of directors of Pilani Investments? Every single business family in this country runs through a set of promoter companies. We don't look at all those. Tata Sons is also a holding company which holds stake in various Tata listed and unlisted companies.
And they're not the majority shareholder in many of them by
many
most.
of them. But they are the controlling management control is with them. They allocate the capital within the group. Now, what Mr. Gupta was also referring, that the level of ethics, the way the thing could have been done, that has left a lot to be desired.
No, but is that the reason why the shares have been hammered?
Shares have been hammered because of the uncertainty, because people were thinking that Cyrus Mistry will bring in one level of operations. See, Tata has not been very good in capital allocation, while Cyrus Mistry was driving a focus on the return on equity. If you look at the return on equity of the group, $100 billion of revenue, just $4.5 billion of profits, 125 billion of market cap, 4.5 billion of profits, 9 billion of free cash flow. On that, you're doing 9 billion of capex every year, 24 billion to 30 billion of debt sitting on the books. So apart from, if you take TCS,
apart from the net profits, everything seems okay. There's nothing wrong with the debt in itself.
In itself, on a group level, no. But if you cut down to company level, then a lot of those companies won't have raised that kind of debt unless they were part of the group.
Okay.
So then if you put that group under a cloud, then those companies start suffering.
Right. So as a shareholder, okay, let me come back to that question in a moment. So, you know, when companies, let's say, get rid or say goodbye to CEOs or chairmen in this case, can it ever be bloodless? I mean, would it be possible, or at least, I mean, from your own experience, is it feasible that you give a notice and then expect the person? Wouldn't it always involve some bloodletting?
No, I'm not saying that you cannot give a notice, you should give a notice. But here, what happens, very simply, as Ajay had said, that had Tata Sons been a nondescript company, probably nothing would have happened. But because of the fact that Tata Sons is a better known company than many other companies in the country, and it is known for its ethical values. See, here the problem is that when you set up a ethical standard at the top, you have to follow it in each and every manner.
And every
that is where the problem comes.
Right.
And here, as you have said, that the problem is not of anything, because we really do not know what is the problem even today. It is allegation from one side and counter from other side. But as I said, that stock market does not like uncertainty. It is the uncertainty which is driving the prices down. Tomorrow you may find that there is nothing wrong. The market will bounce back. But that is going to be a process which is going to be a difficult process.
Right. So let me pick up one or two companies. So you talked about Tata Steel, or we touched on Tata Steel, this Tata Motors. These are well-known stocks, Tata Tea. Now, as an investor of these companies, whether I'm an institutional, government-owned institution or an individual shareholder, should I be worried in future about a holding company which is sitting on top and perhaps controlling the fate? In which case, what is my, let's say, real power as an investor in the company that I've invested in?
That's true for any minority stake, and where you are protected. One is SEBI, second is the ROC. So there are rules laid down. There are independent boards for each of these companies with both executive directors and independent directors. They take their own decisions. Tata Sons is an overall holding company. Unfortunately, it has got blown out of proportion, again because of the structure of the Tata Group. You don't even know the 600 companies which hold the treasury stock of Reliance, for example. Nobody has gone down that path, and nobody has visibility on
Not for
this.
a while, yeah.
So, you know, it's not something which is in the ordinary. One. Second, for investors, you have to look at the Tata Steel numbers, the TCS numbers, or Tata Motors numbers. You're not looking at Tata Sons numbers. That is more at a group level that you're
but I think that was the unfortunate part. So now that it's out in the open, so Cyrus Mistry says, for instance, that, you know, Indian Hotels, beyond flawed international strategy, acquired a property at an inflated price. So these are all details that have been now come out in the open, and in a way, he's not the managing director of Indian Hotels. So, but let's say I'm a shareholder of Indian Hotels. How do I view this?
See, again, a lot of the analysts that I spoke to, Govind, over the last 2 days, they said most of this is discounted in the price. So, Tata Steel, you know the level of debt, or that running a steel maker in Europe at today's prices and with the Chinese overcapacity, which are changes from 2007. When he took over in 2007,
it was
a lot of it was at the middle of a super cycle in commodities. So today it's very easy to say this was a wrong price or right price. I would not really agree with that. So a lot of this is discounted in the price. What is bringing down what Mr. Gupta said is the uncertainty. So not only first 2 days we lost 26,000 crores. As of Thursday we were down 50,000 crores. So 8.5 lakh crores of listed Tata Group, we are down 50,000 crores.
Right.
So it's a big hit for the minority shareholder.
I'm being a little mischievous here, but did that happen in some ways because of the sacking, or is because of the letter that Cyrus Mistry put out, which affects his value or wealth as much as anyone else's?
Yeah, so the sacking, you can say the Tuesday impact was 10,000 crores. And then the follow-on is all the rest of the 40,000.
So this is a CEO who's adopted a scorched earth policy, isn't it, in some ways? Which is quite sad.
I would say that it was not because of the sacking, but it was expectation that there are certain reasons behind the sacking and the person is going to retaliate. So it is more of a retaliation that this is happening. And Ajay has said very clearly that everything is discounted. When Mr. Mistry has written all those things in the letter, it is nothing new. It is not a reinvention of the wheel. Everything was known. Debt of Tata Steel is very well known. And I never believe in evaluating a decision 10 years, 20 years down the line, because you have to evaluate. When Tata took Chorus, everybody with Gaga. And look at the steel industry. What has happened to ArcelorMittal, where it is? They are not able to pay dividend at all. Still, Tata Steel is paying dividend. So my issue is, let us not evaluate it. And second thing I want to very clearly say, that Mystery's letter is some sort of a scaremongering. He is trying to create scare in the mind of investor, where saying that potential $18 billion loss. Now that write-off is not possible unless your account books are fudged. And if account books are fudged, it is a criminal thing. And Mr. Mistry being a signatory to all the accounts, he is also culpable. Equally liable. So my point is this: here in this letter, Mr. Mistry is claiming as a victor, as a victim also. When he said the market cap has gone up, he says victor, it is because of me. And when something, then he is a victim because board did not allow him to function. So you can't say, and what happened to the effort of 6 lakh employees? So I cannot say that one person is responsible for all the growth that has happened in the market cap, and rest 6 lakh people and the Tata Sons board is responsible for anything wrong that has happened.
Right, we're running out of time. So Ajay, going forward, I mean, what are the key lessons that you would take away to, in a way, which bring some sort of sanity to this marketplace, or lessons for other CEOs or companies or boards? And I'll come to you for that after that.
Yeah, I think one is corporate image building is very critical. Your brand values you have lost, reputation damages international. And you see Financial Times, Wall Street, you name the paper and they are giving very strong indictments of the process. So think through the process. And think of your minority shareholders, think of your employees. Look at the employee morale today. 6 lakh employees, how they are feeling that the top guys are, is it an ego hassle that, and today we don't even know what are the reasons. They just innuendo that, there was performance, there was, he didn't meet our ethos. It's very general terms. This is not the way. So process is bad. Decision you can do. You're the main shareholder. You can hire and fire as you want. But the process and the thinking through, just a small thing, he's still chairman on a lot of the companies. What happens now? How do you make him step down? You'll have to call EGMs or AGMs, get him, or he resigns of his own volition. It's going to be messy. And what about the governance for all those companies? Second, the managements will be more into this firefighting rather than facing the market and looking at employee morale.
And it's troubled times for many of those companies.
A lot of those companies.
Right. Last word, Mr. Gupta.
See, I would say that truth and transparency can shut million mouth, and lack of truth will open billion mouth. So it would be better for the Tatas to come out with the truth straightforward rather than wasting time. And secondly, I would partially disagree with Ajay that each company will be working on its own. It is not going to impact each and every company. They will work, they will function like they have been functioning. The board level fights keep on happening. It doesn't affect the ground level situation, because they have to earn their salary out of work they do.
That's a wonderful note to end on. Thank you both for joining me. We need to go in for a break. Coming up on the other side, 32 lakh debit cards were compromised recently. Is there any fallout of that, and what are banks doing to boost their systems or improve security? Stay with us. Welcome back to Policy Watch. 2 weeks ago, a wave of panic spread amongst debit card holders after it emerged that some 32 lakh debit cards had been compromised at various ATMs. The National Payments Corporation of India, which controls and manages all retail payments in India, said that only 641 customers had complained of fraudulent activity and that there was no need to panic. Moreover, According to the NCPI, only rupees 1.6 crore had been lost in this manner. While the fears seems to have subsided somewhat, questions remain. How safe is our banking system, and more specifically our ATMs where the frauds are happening? Where are the risks the highest, and where should we be careful as users? And more importantly, what are banks doing to keep my money safe? To discuss this, I am joined by Puneet Kapoor, Senior Executive VP at Kotak Mahindra Bank, and KV Karthik, Partner Financial Advisory Services at Deloitte. Thank you both for joining me. Puneet, let me start with you. What is your understanding of the nature of this problem, and to what extent have banks been affected by it, to the extent that you can explain it to our viewers?
Okay, so why it got hacked, frankly, is not an answer that sits with me right now. There are people from forensic agencies, etc., which are still carrying out an investigation to understand and find out exactly what has happened. But what actually transpired subsequently is that debit cards of lots of customers across the banks kind of got misused in certain overseas markets, and transactions of different amounts got carried out on those debit cards, largely through ATMs, as a cash withdrawal from ATMs.
Right. Puneet, was your bank affected?
Yes, the customers of our bank were also affected.
Right. So, Puneet, one of the concerns is that banks are underplaying it. What's your response to that?
No, see, I do not know what is the extent of the total impact, as in the last report that we are aware of, which was collated by NPCI and put in the public information, is which says that about 631 cards got compromised for an amount of 1.3 crore.
Right.
Now, I mean, is this figure high, low? I frankly can't comment, because that's the data that the aggregator is sharing with us. Is the impact more than this? Difficult to comment, because see, ultimately, what does it take to clone a plastic and use it fraudulently? You need two things. There is the basic confidential data which is there in the magnetic strip of a card that somebody needs to reproduce a plastic, and second is you need the password. Now, the password is in an encrypted form. It's not so easy to break the password.
Right.
So, obviously, to what extent the fraudster or fraudsters have been able to really break into it will frankly define the extent of damage. See, our belief is that whatever damage was to be caused to a large extent has happened, because as each bank took its own preventive and remedial measure, incremental transactions stopped coming in, incremental transactions as fraudulent transactions.
Right. Karthik, tell us, so you've been looking at the banking sector as a whole. Now, I was seeing, for instance, a statement made by the Reserve Bank of India Director General Mahindra. So, he talked about how banks in effect were not alert enough, and there were instances which showed that they were lax. So, what's your understanding?
So, I mean, if I take a step back and say, when did this event occur? From what I read from media reports is that there were at least 2 months back, there were instances which started coming to light. And then the banks probably investigated these alerts and arrived that probably there was a compromise and they need to take action on that. So, having said that, the problem with the technology related fraud, when I'll use a bigger terminology just rather than just an ATM fraud, the problem is that the way in which we operate as a fraud risk management framework in a bank, where you say prevent, detect and respond, that does not work. In fact, you need to be alert enough to not only detect it as soon as it happens, but you should be resilient enough to actually come back and be on
So
the move.
would you say that banks were responsive in this case? Frauds will happen, let's say, because the criminal may be always smarter than the system.
Absolutely.
But what about the speed of response in this case?
So I'll not talk about speed of response, but response has been pretty good. So I mean, there is always a debate how fast can you respond. There's always a scope for improvement.
Right.
But having said that, I mean, I feel heartened that at least the banks have taken a decision to at least replace cards when banks have said that I'm going to replace 600,000 cards or 500,000 cards. So having said that, that's something which I find very encouraging to see that they have taken proactive action.
Right. So what are the systemic problems, however, that we should be concerned about as savers, as people who have invested in the banking system? I may be a shareholder in a bank. I mean, and there's so many areas that I'm affected by this.
Sure. See, we just did a fraud survey about last year, and one of the biggest risks which we asked the banks in the next 2 years, which is the area of biggest risk, is they mentioned that it will be technology related risk, and internet banking, ATM frauds, and e-commerce transaction, whether it's credit or debit cards, were the ones which were highlighted by them. So having said that, what should banks be doing? Yes, they should be investing in technology related fraud risk management, because the way they were looking at having antivirus software or probably some preventive mechanisms for people not to enter into your technology environment is what they were looking at, but that's no longer valid in this interconnect.
Yeah, because this one is really ATMs, which means, let's say I've used the ATM and used my card in a certain ATM, someone comes and clones my information, and then someone managed to get the information out. I mean, get my money out.
So that's what I'm talking about. So what happens is I cannot just look at my banking system and as I'm a standalone environment.
Right, yeah, I have an account in State Bank of India, but I'm withdrawing from HDFC Bank and so on. Yeah.
So it's in this interconnected world, you need to,
which we want as consumers. We want everything to be connected.
Absolutely, and that's more important, because then you need to have the same set of standards across the banking system, which will enable the consumer to be confident that yes.
Right. So and you seem to be saying that those standards don't exist.
I don't say that. What I'll say that it will be at different levels at different banking environment, but also be aware that there are white label ATMs. So how do you manage that? So it's not just the banks who can look at their own system, but there are white label ATMs. If I go and use them, so will I get?
So white label ATMs are ATMs that are not owned by any bank.
Yes.
Right. So are you saying that that's the biggest concern point or the weakest point in the system?
So that is one of the areas where, because it's not a bank which can control that ATM, or how that payment provider actually manages that ATM. So that is where the risk will come. It's not just the bank's own ATM, but other banks' ATM. In addition to that, the white label ATMs, where the concern will come
So a
from.
few weeks have passed. The matters have settled down somewhat. I mean, fears have somewhat subsided. What should be the policy response to this? I mean, going forward and being, more responsive and alert.
Sure. So the first thing, I believe most of the banks have initiated an audit, a forensic audit, to find out if there has been any compromise on their framework and all. But I also believe that the RBI has also initiated a forensic audit, and we should get to hear from it in about a month's time. What is the root cause of the problem? So what's important is to identify, one, the root cause of the problem. But I would also go probably a step further and suggest that if we set up a policy as a regulatory policy, saying that each of the banks should probably periodically undertake a audit of their ID systems and these networks, which can probably.
So are you saying that they may not be doing it right now?
No, it is not mandatory for them to get it done. So it may be good as a way forward to mandatory to get it done, so that each bank gets it reviewed, and then we have a report saying that where's the point of compromise.
What is a bank like yours doing to ensure that this does not happen or will not happen again?
No, so we did spot. So see, what happened is it all started from China. Yeah. So the moment the first 3 fraudulent transactions got reported by our customers, we immediately realized that there's something wrong happening here. Yeah, and so we took certain preventive measures. For example, we reduced the per day withdrawal limit on the plastics, so that the damage is contained, number 1. Number 2, when you realize that no, it is far more broad based than what we realized, we actually temporarily blocked the country code itself. Right, and I'm sure that all banks would have taken similar measures, because that's how this whole problem.
Right. Let me come back on that question, Puneet. So will the bank protect my back if there is a fraudulent transaction?
Okay, so 2-3 things here. Number one, depending upon the category of plastic you are carrying, and the standard categories that we have in the industry are silver, gold, platinum, signature, etc., etc. They come with increasing amount of daily limit. Now, that daily limit effectively never comes into use. For example, a signature plastic may carry a 3 lakh or a 4 lakh per day withdrawal limit kind of capability, but that is not the amount you would ever use for a cash withdrawal, right. So, while that is there as a product feature, but there is nothing stopping the customers from revising it downwards to a logical value. And if there is a need, when they see, and this is not something which you do at a drop of a hat. So, if you know that okay, 3 days later I might need 2 lakh rupees, you can always go and increase that limit. Yeah, so that is one. So, one should err on the side of caution, then on the side of of flashiness, that I have products which can give me so much more. Yeah, that is one part. The second part is, as I said, have the capability to switch on or switch off whatever kind of transactions you want to do. So, if you are traveling overseas, switch on the capability, once you come back, switch it off again, that kind of a thing. Yeah, and third, of course, is on the bank's side to have a very robust fraud engines which are able to read, preempt and throw alerts.
And finally, now that this has been contained, do you feel that more instances like this could happen? Or really, should I worry as a saver or a depositor or a...
See, frauds will always happen. Let's take it at face value. It's not going to go away because it's a cat and mouse game. Whatever you introduce, somebody else will identify a flaw and try to exploit that loophole. Having said that, you need to be careful, because at the end of the day, if you are not careful in terms of whether you share your ATM password or you're not aware of where you're using your ATMs or for example online. In fact, you go to your social media network. I mean, you have so much information about yourself posted on that media. I can easily get that information. If I have some information about the ATM card, I can easily clone your card as well.
Right.
So having said that, you need to be very careful in terms of the precautions that you take.
Right. And that's the moral of the final moral of the story, that you need to be careful about who you give your number to. Preferably don't give it to anyone, and make sure that you're alert about the way you use whether it's online banking or ATM cards. Karthik, thank you so much. Thank you, Puneet. We run out of time. That's all we have time for on Policy Watch this week. We'll be back next week, same time. Thanks for watching.